got the idea to do a seed library here from Ken Green, who started the country's first seed library in the Hudson Valley in upstate New York.
It's really important for communities, especially communities like here at Martha's Vineyard, that have a very specific ecosystem and climate that's different than other parts of the nation, to have some kind of local seed cooperative effort happening, whether that's a library or a bank or a swap going on. And part of the reason is because over time, the people involved in that project can improve the varieties to perform better with the specific conditions of the island here. And so that requires people to check out the seeds, grow them in their gardens, enjoy some of the food or the flowers or whatever they grew, but then save some seeds from what they grew to return to the library. That keeps that variety alive, it helps it adapt, and it also keeps it in the hands of gardeners and farmers here. It keeps it alive by growing it. Does anyone know what this is? So this is lettuce. Oh, yeah. That stage when we're harvesting lettuce at the edible stage it's kind of like the preteen stage of the plant. There can be 50 to 100 yellow flowers on the top of a healthy, full-size lettuce plant. And that's what each of these little puffs is here, which is full of seeds. I'll just show you quickly threshing the lettuce. Basically, you're just rubbing these together to get it to release. And sometimes actually rubbing against the screen gives you a little bit more friction. When you become a seed saver, you're participating in the legacy that's been passed to us. And it's been passed to us from hand to hand to hand. Working with seeds and really getting intimate with them and touching them and learning about plants, you have this moment where you realize how much we've forgotten and how much has been lost. And you didn't even know that you were missing that part of yourself. That moment when you feel that you've regained some lost part of yourself through regaining these skills, 10, 12,000 years of history of seed saving, of coevolution between humans and plants. And we got to this modern point here where our lives are so separate from the plants that produce our food, and even more separate from the seeds that produce the plants. It's also about this idea of the power of small things. That in American culture, we've developed this idea that bigger is better. And we see corporations having more and more control, and we see government having more control, and we think, I'm just one person, what can I do? Learning how to save seeds and finding ways to share seeds within your community is a very, very powerful way of actually doing something. And you see what one little tiny seed can do and produce, and how it can touch people, not only in terms of nutrition and flavor and food, but also in terms of communicating the seed story, the cultural significance of the seed. I think it gives people hope that they can make a difference as an individual, even though it feels like we have these bigger, more overwhelming issues that we're dealing with.
This is the butterfly weed, Asclepias tuberosa. You can see it right now in terms of its dispersal, which you can do, and everybody likes to do that with seed. One of the real interesting, cool features of this plant is that it has a co-evolutionary relationship with the monarch butterfly. Why do monarchs lay their eggs on here? They do it for a real simple reason. This plant has these milky saps. They're called lactifers, hence the name milkweed. When the larvae ingest that, they become toxic to other animals. So birds won't eat them, other animals can't eat them. This plant in particular, when I arrived now 12 years ago, was actually a plant of special concern. Now it's making a comeback, and it's just in time. By getting people to plant more of these, more of them will be around and helping the monarch butterflies. In my own home garden, I have about 50. And this year I saw just one monarch, which was kind of disturbing.
So one of the plants that we like to propagate here at the Arboretum is the butterfly milkweed, the Asclepias tuberosa. The flower is what's really, the showstopper for this. It's an orange flower, Here on the island, it tends to get even into the more of the reds. MV Wild Type is a program that was started back in about 2006, and the idea behind it is that we go out and we're collecting seeds or cuttings at times from native plants.
Not only native plants in terms of Eastern North American native plants, but native plants from seed collected on Martha's Vineyard. Seeds really are little plant packages. They're genetically contain the natural history of everything that's come before them.
Being an island, the plants that have evolved here, they've often developed characteristics that make them particularly well suited to our environment, our soils, our climate, the unique challenges and conditions that we have here on the island. The genetic makeup of every plant, even of the same species, is slightly different. Just like people are all different. We all have characteristics in common, but we're all different. And that's what we're really focusing on, is tapping into that genetic diversity inherent in seeds.
We're collecting those native seeds and then growing them on to be used as restoration projects or in just normal residential landscaping projects.
These native plants don't require fertilizers. We want to eliminate the use of fertilizers where we can. Their root systems go deep into the soil and establish drought tolerance. These plants will thrive with minimal inputs.
I think it is easier for people to understand that they're part of an ecosystem here because we are an island. All of our resources are finite, including land. One of the conservation problems we face, and it's a problem that so many communities and ecosystems around the world are facing, is fragmentation of habitat.
What typically happens, which is hard to see, is a person who's building a home will clear out all the native vegetation, not realizing its value, and then put back in plants that may or may not be well adapted to the site.
These plants are very important components of the overall ecosystem, the ecology of the island. A lot of insects and various animals have developed very intricate relationships with various plants.
So our idea is to grow the plants, show people how to use them in design landscapes, and then also teach others about the benefits of these plants in terms of connecting to our biological heritage and kind of keeping the flora of the island alive.
Here in New England, the traditional corns were something like maybe this. This is Squanto corn. This has been preserved by Plymouth Plantation. It dates back to Squanto's times. We planted King Philip red flint corn last spring, and this is the results of our crop. We hope to get enough yield to do our traditional activities with it of making cornmeal and masa and making tortillas, as well as enough to save for next year's planting and to share with others in our community who would like to grow this beautiful, beautiful corn.
Do we plant these?
So you planted this corn in the spring.
And that is that corn.
And that is the corn, yeah, that we grew. It's just now getting to that stage on the stalks where it's time to pick it. What I'm gonna have you guys do is pick one ear of corn. Everything I need to teach, I can use just a handful of seeds and probably can teach it all. It's not about telling them all the answers, but a seed, once they discover this is something that's alive and it's gonna grow, they own that information and that knowledge they are so willing to build upon. What's happening in their hand, what's happening in the ground when they put the seed in, connecting them back. It's something that they're not even going to understand has changed the way that they live their lives.
Like about this much of every corn or so is going to be used for seeds for the next set of plants.
Yeah, for the next set
so
of
that
plants.
way the fourth graders can do the whole thing over again. It's really just like endless farming. The cool thing about seeds is how they can use the soil and the water and the things around them and then grow them up into things this big. It's just this little part right here can turn into this. A pine cone can turn into one of those giant trees you see all the way down there. The best part about seeds is how they evolve over time, and just by simply planting them and giving them a little bit of care and a little bit of water, they can be huge.
We've bought this 24-drawer cabinet to save the seeds in, like an old library card catalog. The more people use it, the more we're going to gather these seed stories of where seeds have come from and how people eat them and why they love them. And that process of sharing stories and sharing food traditions is, I think, a really beautiful way to bring the community together and to honor some of the heritage that we've inherited from our ancestors or from our neighbors or from our elders in the community who share their seeds with us.
This is Narragansett white flint corn that we grew in the school gardens this year. It's this really old heirloom variety of corn that was grown here by native peoples and then grown for like 300 consecutive years on this farm in Connecticut, and then it was given to us at the schools and we grew it out and the kids shelled it and we made some really awesome cornbread out of it. But we have a lot extra, so if anyone wants to try growing it, made really delicious cornbread.
I've brought some green zebra tomato seeds saved by Kyla Binney up at the Allen Farm that she brought to our last seed event here, and we all helped save them on the now snowed-in porch. And I actually love green zebra tomatoes. They're some of my favorites because they have this gorgeous, well, green zebra look. They're striped in this just luscious situation, so I would suggest everyone taking them.
I brought Italian flat whole beans. They're from my garden. They originally came from Italy. They're very prolific, and I have a ton of them. I also have some dill in here that I collected out of my garden too. So that's what I brought to share. This is dill. I grew the dill last year, so then I let it go to seed, and then I collected the seeds in the fall.
A part of the seed library here will be an entry form that people will fill out. And one of the things that we're asking them to record is the story of the seed. Some of these seeds have these long histories that are easy to lose.
I brought the Lebanese light green squash, and they're a really nice summer squash. They have a really delicious flavor. They're a pale light green, and I like them a lot. Rattlesnake is one of my favorite. It's a whole bean. It grows really well, and it has like the best flavor of any of the beans that I've tried.
I got flat Italian pole beans, so we're going to have Italian pole beans in Chilmark next summer.
Because of this loss of crop diversity that we've had and the way that the seed industry has become so consolidated over the last generation or so, crops have been chosen for their shelf life, their ability to travel long distances, and the reasons that people have saved their seeds for the rest of human history has been because they do really well in the place that you live, or the food that grows from that plant is really delicious, or the plant itself is really beautiful. And as the seed system has become more commercialized and industrialized, those varieties have disappeared forever. It's a real loss of control over the future of our food system. And by learning about seed saving, by saving our own seeds, and by sharing them in the community, we can help reclaim some of what has been lost in this way that's very positive and tangible and community building. I just can't think of a better solution to the root of the problems in our food system than reclaiming the source of our food in this way through seed sharing.